our financial managers, and you guys are impacted some by that. I believe all in a favorable manner. So as we go through this, I don't think there's going to be anything we're going to go over. I mean, it's a lot of information to process, but essentially it should streamline your operations and make things a lot easier for you as far as billing and being paid for your services. So hopefully when we get through with this, you'll realize that it is in fact beneficial. You'll for the most part be receiving more money from us for the services you provide. Not everyone, but residential and day providers, and also the way you get paid, it will be streamlined. So everyone should be able to see my screen. I've shared my agenda. If somebody would chat in the box or unmute themselves and confirm you can hear me and you can see my screen, I'd appreciate it. All right, thank you, Ben. All reliable. Okay, so I want to make sure that I'm clear. If you're a financial manager, you're free to be on this call if you want, but you're not. This stuff really doesn't apply to you. It's not going to hurt you to hear it, but it's really geared towards our private providers. And I'm actually going to break this into two pieces. I want to be able to go over the things our case management and EI providers need to know first, and let them check out if they want to, because a lot of the complexities really don't impact case management and EI, but they are impacted by some of this information. So I've tried to front load this presentation for in that regard, so that we didn't waste their time sitting on this call. Oops, I meant to push record. Oh, it's already being recorded. I guess Ben did that too. Yep, thank you, whoever did that. Thanks. Thanks. So I did drop the agenda in the meeting. I'm going to drop in two other handouts as we get to them. I'm trying to make sure folks don't get ahead of me or get their attention diverted and miss something, and prefer that we just go over it slowly and make sure we're all on the same page as we go. Also, as you just noted, we are recording this session. We will publish it on our website along with these materials. So for those of you that don't want to bother with downloading these, just want to follow along, you'll have an opportunity to get the materials off our website at a later time. Hopefully we'll have all that uploaded sometime tomorrow. So anyways, I was just trying to follow the comments here. All right, so why are we having this meeting? Well, first of all, DDSN's been tasked with getting out of the capitated funding system for quite some time, and with COVID hitting, it basically accelerated our need to look at this and get this done for our at-home population. It needed to be done anyways, but it just kind of accelerated our goal and our process. It needed to be done. So with that, we also finally got an administrative contract signed with Health and Human Services, and so the way DDSN supposedly was getting paid up to this point is basically taking some money off the top, if you will, and passing through, billing HHS at one rate and passing through a different rate to our provider network. And theoretically, that rate split was how we paid for all of our central office and administrative functions. So as we got into the administrative contract, one of the things we are required to do is not double dip per se. So we're obligated to pass through those rates in full, and we bill HHS now for administrative costs in a separate contract. So the administrative contract thus far is only over the waiver programs. So that would be HASKI, Community Supports, and IDRD, and that was effective at the beginning of this fiscal year. So these two things culminated in why private providers are having some impact from what's going on here. So as it relates to rate pass-through, those that have been billing Medicaid Direct have always been getting the Medicaid rates. There's been no split. But those providers billing us, or if one of our financial managers, one of our DSM boards, may or may not have received the full Medicaid rate. The rate increases that we're required to pass through are related to our Medicaid-funded services, not our state-funded services. So another way of stating that is our obligation to get our admin costs paid is to not take costs from Medicaid programs that need to be paid through to you guys for services. When it comes to our state-funded services, we have a lot of latitude on how we want to handle those services. So effective January 1st, all the boards had their band funding for bands B and I, or their at-home consumers, discontinued. So we've done amendments. Pretty much I think we've got them all back signed at this point. And so they no longer have funds just sitting there to serve consumers. So the residential, they still do possess those bands, so there's some nuance here when we go through this package today of some things related to how day program and employment services needs to be handled. But for the most part, you know, for everything you guys do with these boards, they don't have the money to pay you anymore. So for you to bill them and they don't have the money is a problem. So we're addressing that, and so we'll go over that. Also, they do, like I said, do still hold the bands for the consumers in the residential program. So I'll go through more detail on this, but if you have charges that you're charging to a financial manager for one of their residential consumers, for example, they live in one of their houses, but they attend your day program, you'll still have to bill that provider because they have the money, not us. So there's some changes there in the process. Well, you're actually still doing the same exact thing. You've always billed them. So nothing's changing there. Really the only thing is what rate you will use and how you determine the number of units. It's something we'll have to go over. There's a good bit of documentation and changes in our documentation directives, manuals, and online reports that we've had to implement. I don't know how many of you guys actually are familiar with Chapter 10 of our finance manual. I hope all of you are. It's the Bible as it relates to how you bill us for services. It was in need of updating prior to many of the changes we're going to be talking about today, but it's had an entire overhaul at this point. We have not yet issued or put on our site the actual finalized versions of these, because I really wanted to make sure I took some time to go back and re-review what we've got before we start publishing these things. But it really brings it up to speed with what we were already doing prior to fee-for-service, and then also making some tweaks related to what we're going to be going over today. And a lot of those changes too don't really apply to you all in some of those areas because you're not a financial manager, but you know, it does apply to everybody in some way, shape, or form. And then our funding directive is going to be changing. I really don't think that applies to you guys much because it goes over the capitated funding system. I haven't had time to really look at that in depth, but there may be some changes there that you'll want to be aware of, and when we put that out for public comment, you might want to review it if you're a residential or day provider. I know case managers and EI providers shouldn't have to worry about that at all, but the others may. And then some of the reports on R2D2, which is our reporting system on the portal, has changed, or we've added some new ones, I guess. So we'll go over those as well here in a little bit. Now, so case management or EI providers, like I said, you're free to listen to this and check out if you want. This is really fairly simple as far as how it applies to you, and it's good news, I think. Basically, there's no change in the rates or any documentation or anything like that. You're going to keep doing everything you've always done. The good news is, in my opinion, and I'm hopeful you agree that you guys don't need to submit bills to us anymore. You know, you used to have to print those things out, sign them, send back maybe one page or the last page or the whole thing or whatever. You no longer have to do that. So basically, you'll run those reports for your own records, but we will run information on our side and pay you based on what is submitted. So when you submit those documents, just as before, we've landed on we don't need your signature to feel like you've already done the level of review necessary to get paid, and that you, just by submitting those documents on their app, you're already approving that stuff. So just printing it and signing it, you know, seemed more of a process issue, not anything more than that. So this is going to be much simpler. You will just basically get paid now. So the other thing that you might see is, you know, as we flip fee for service for the at-home bans, a lot of the providers have what's called a fiscal agent respite payroll, or they might even have respite sitters on their own payroll. And case managers, I understand it, are involved in the ISR, or the individual service reports related to reporting these services to us. I think we're going to have to, Lori and I and some others at the central office are going to meet and kind of figure out issuing some guidance, but it seems like there's a lot of variation in practice as to the level of involvement case managers have in review and submission of these documents. And what we want to do is give some kind of either requirement as what we want it, how we want it done, or at least some guidance on what we suggest. But I do think, you know, after we've been talking to the boards, we've kind of got a ton of different different structures out there as to what the case managers are doing in this area. And so I just think you guys might start hearing, you know, getting some questions, if you will, from the boards, and y'all might have to revisit kind of how y'all do business together. So I just want to give you a heads up. Basically, some of you might already be receiving those calls from the boards you work with. Of course, it's really a sign of things to come as we go conflict free. You know, we're just going to have more and more of this type of issue to deal with. So this is just kind of a beginning step, if you will, of all those logistics that we have to work out. So Lori's next case management meeting is on the 17th, I understand it. We'll be on the agenda at that meeting, and we'll try to have some more information at that point in regards to ISRs and what our suggestions are. I'll get to your chats here in a minute. And then community supports waiver, just want to make sure everybody understands they're supposed to be monitoring this cap. The cap did not get changed because the cap is based off of the Medicaid rates, but we are now, I guess, and Lori I think might be on here, or Ben might want to comment, the way that you might have managed that cap was using the old 2750 day rate, or the old support employment rates, and pretty much all along that was really not the right way for us to be doing it. But in this situation, the rates in the system now are reflective of the actual HHS rate. So as you monitor this cap, which is an annual cap, you'll just need to be cognizant of that. And we do have a good many people spending in excess of the cap, and whether that is because they're getting services above the authorization. We haven't dug into that level yet, but we do know there's a good many actually spending above 16,704 per year, and we just have to dig into, is it an authorization issue, or is it folks providing unauthorized services? So I just want to let you know up front that that's not changing any of that. I mean, you always had to monitor that, and the cap did not go up. Now, the state funded community supports cap is increasing because it's got a day program component, and the calculator that we have on Business Tools is in the process of being updated. It may have been updated at this point. I don't know. We've been kind of busy. I haven't had a chance to check in on it. So it went up about $400 or $500 to account for the fact that the day program rate went up. So let me check what this chat is, and then if any of you guys want to drop off after this that are case managers or EIs, feel free to do so. I kind of felt like it might be Melinda. Companion and respite providers have to send a separate invoice to multiple case managers. It's not a priority for case managers, as some take weeks to process and send to the financial manager. I'm going to have to read that like 4 times to understand what you just said. Ben, do you know it, or anybody else on here?
Not really.
Any comments on that?
I'm not sure why they're not sending it to the financial people at the.
Companion respite providers have to send a separate invoice. All right, so you're saying, so let's speak specifically about Arc of the Midlands. So you provide companion, you provide respite, and I'm assuming you're speaking for yourself at this point, and you send it to other case management companies, and they hold you up. Yeah.
I'll unmute if you want to we can.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead. If you want to unmute yourself.
Melinda, I can unmute her.
No, she has to unmute her end.
I unmuted her.
She still has to unmute her end. We had this issue the other day too. While we're waiting.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, so let's say we provide companion to 9 clients. All 9 clients have a different case manager. So in order to process for Babcock to pay, they require that we send the invoice and the logs to the case manager. So we have to send 9 emails to 9 different case managers, and then we have to wait on each individual case manager, and the case manager sends it to the financial manager at Babcock. So we don't get paid companion for 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, this is the guidance that we sent you, Chris.
Yeah, so, Melinda, what we want to do, as we step through fee-for-service, our goal in general is to make things simpler. So the process that you reference has nothing to do with what we're going through now, but it does sound like a real pain and something that maybe we need to try and fix, but it really...
Is there a reason why case managers have to review that direct bill?
Well, yeah, that's the conversation I need to have with...
They don't review residential, so why do we have to have a case?
Yeah, I've got to talk to Lori. That's part of what we want to clarify before the 17th, because I agree. If there's a way to streamline this process, I mean, we're going to have papers and documents flying all over the state here soon with conflict-free.
Right.
We have got to get a streamlined process so that people can get paid, and it's maybe even automated or something. Because I feel your pain and I understand. I don't want to go down that path as it relates to what we're dealing with today, because that's just an issue that's existed all along. But good point. We'll make note of it.
And I understand they've got a full plate too, so processing my invoice and sending it to Babcock's not a priority. I mean, I get it, but we just don't understand why the case managers have to approve that direct service when they don't approve anything else.
I think originally it was a monitoring tool to try and ensure that monitoring took place, but I agree, and I think Chris agrees that this should be separate from payment. They can monitor without holding up payments and things like that. So we'll circle back on a lot of this. This is changing a lot of processes across the state, and this is going to be one of them. So I think
cool.
let us revisit.
Thanks for unmuting.
Yeah, and I want to comment too that to your point about Babcock, you will be billing us for that now, and instead of Babcock. So Babcock.
Not if they're in residential. Not if they're in residential.
Yeah, not if they're residential. But would you be companion and respite for residential?
No, good point.
Anyways, I didn't know.
Good point. Touche.
So,
residential service rate.
what's that? I have to mute everybody again. All right, Craig Bird. How do
I can get this one, Chris, if you want.
All right. Well, he's getting ahead of us. I mean, we're not to residential day yet, right?
Well, he's talking about the CS. He's talking about the community supports cap for people who are providing services. And ultimately, Craig, what you need to worry about is what's authorized. The case manager shouldn't authorize anything above that would put you above the cap. So as long as you remain within your authorization, you should be PG.
I understand. Yeah, if you're a service provider, you don't have to worry about the cap. You just worry about the authorization, and whoever's issuing the authorization is the one worried about whether they authorize over and above the funding provided. Does that make sense? I mean, I know that's what Ben said. I was just trying to kind of get it in my head too, to be honest, and reiterate that. Did you get that, Craig? Can you give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, something? All right, Laura, are we headed to get to the point of providers just billing Medicaid directly and none of us sending invoices for any services to other providers? I mean, I don't know. I mean, if we're headed that direction, I don't think so. We might be headed to a point where you're either billing Medicaid direct for those services that are direct, or you're billing DDSN for those services that are not direct, because we are the provider of record and we have to bill everything, and folks will not have a direct contract with Medicaid, and that's a good bit down the road, and I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball on that, but I can't tell you for sure yes or no on that unless somebody else on this line is smarter than me and knows the answer to that question. Okay. Good, Craig. Thank you. All right. Sounds good. All right. So we're going to move on to residential and day. This is where it gets murky and deep, so to speak. So guys, if you're case management EI, feel free to take off. Like I said, this recording will be available, so if you want to go back and listen to it and make sure you haven't missed anything, you can do that. You can hang out with us, whatever you want to do. All right, so residential and day. So the rates, as we unravel the split rate issue with the waivers, the residential rates that we pay out to providers includes a res-hab component and a day-hab component. So the daily rate we pay you has those two pieces nestled in, as well as enhanced waiver or anything like that. I mean, there's other components, but for the purpose of this, it includes those services. The res-hab portion, we're already paying out more than we're splitting rates, but it's upside down. Basically, we give the whole rate that is passed through to you guys, and we have to supplement it. So there's nothing there in regards to trying to fix a pass-through. We did have an issue like that with ICF, but as I understand it, none of our privates run ICFs, so that's why this would be true for you all. Now, ICFs are not a waiver, but they're also a split rate that we decided to get out of as a part of this admin contract. Also, many of the rates we pay you all, they're not Medicaid rates, they're state-funded rates. So again, whether we increase that rate or not is a question we have to ask, not due to being required to do so. So as we go through here, just keep that in mind. Any outlier amounts paid by DDSN are also fully funded by the state funds that we have nothing to do with Medicaid at this point. This is one of the things that Mary's trying to get fixed, because we're out here paying all these dollars and have no ability to get it matched, and that's a real problem. It's squeezing our system. I mean, the less money we have, the less money we had to give to providers. So it's an issue we're trying to resolve. Residential rates are increasing, but they're only based on the day-hab component built inside that daily rate. And the residential rates will increase for present days or service delivery days, intermittent leave days, bed vacancy days, and leave days. So all those things, Deborah Leopard's on the line if she wants to jump in. She said just to tell y'all, it's like it's always, all the rates that were the same rates before are going to be the same rates still, and all those processes will be maintained. Deborah, you got anything to add to that, or did I cover that right?
I think you covered it pretty well. Just for those of you that provide residential, you'll get an amended appendix that has all your new rates. Probably get that tomorrow. But like Chris said, the same rules apply about how you bill those vacant days and leave days. Nothing's changed at all in that process.
Okay. Now, not all residential daily rates were adjusted because they're either state or we already passed through way more. Either they're fully state rates, in other words, they're not even a Medicaid service, or the rate is already so high, even if it is Medicaid, that we're already so far upside down, there is no rate to pass through. It's already in there. So the cloud program, the CIRS, Sears, SFH, TFH program, the forensic rates, and the medical model rates, none of those increased. The SFH, TFH, there is a component here under number 21 we're going to talk about as it relates to the day program, because that's an add-on. Day program is not in that rate. Same with Sears, it's not in that rate. There's an add-on for Sears. So the daily rates for outliers, if there's any outliers funded, were also incremented like we have historically, based on the underlying rate that outlier is built on. And again, Deborah, feel free to jump in here if you want, because you're the expert in this area. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think it's the way that we've been doing it for the last couple years. Most of your rates are going to go up by the same rate as the residential high needs. And if you have any unusual rates, you can just email me, or you can wait. The appendix will be out tomorrow, so you'll be able to see. But if anything looks weird, or if you have any questions, you can always email the contracts email, and I'll answer them for you.
All right. So the day program rate component built inside these rates was based on a 2750 unit, and it need to be bumped up to 3129, so that's an additional $3.79 per unit, which there's 2 units a day. And so that rate is being added, and we'll go over the rates here in a little bit. That rate is being added into the daily rate for each residential service that is getting a rate increase. That increase, though, now includes, built inside that rate is the vacancy allowance. So in other words, part of the reason we split rates with providers is because we paid out $27.50 per unit based on enrollment. They didn't have to go. So we were basically funding units we weren't funded for. So now that we're passing through the full rate, that vacancy also goes away with it. So it'll now be based on actual units delivered for day service. The SFH, TFH, so specialized family homes or therapeutic family homes, there's a day program add-on. We're going to be modifying the fixed price bid and issuing a contract contract revision related to that, where we're going to bifurcate the behavior supports and day program add-on into 2 separate add-ons. Currently, there's an add-on in this area if you have behavior supports or day program. The problem is, if I got to pass through a day program rate increase, I don't need to be increasing the behavior supports rate because it didn't change, but I do need to juice the rate for the day program. So how do I accomplish this? Well, the only way to really accomplish it is to separate them. So we'll maintain the existing behavior supports day program add-on rate as the behavior supports add-on rate going forward, and there will be a new day program add-on rate at $31.29 per actual unit delivered. So the add-on will not be a daily rate, it'll be a per unit rate, so that we can tie and prove that we're passing through the full HHS rate. I'm going to get to your questions as we go through here. A lot of these people are asking questions that I'm going to be going over, so I don't want to get out of order. Employment services, we have, believe it or not, we have 3 different 15-minute rates. Haskell's $5.11, IDRD $16.48, and CS is $21.95. This is an issue we inherited, and we understand it's a problem. We've been unsuccessful in getting it fixed prior to this fee-for-service, although we've been working on it and hammering on HHS, trying to get them to adjust these. So technically, for Haskell, we could say, okay, we're passing through 511, which that would be a huge pay cut for people. IDRD is a small adjustment down. Again, we'll show you the revised rate. I got a rate table here in a minute we'll go over that shows the changes. And then 6 CS is actually going up from what's currently built in to what we're paying. So Respite also will go to $317 per 15-minute unit. I don't remember what it is right now, but again, it's on the chart we'll look at in a minute. And Companion will be paid at a rate of $329 per 15-minute unit. So let's go ahead and look at the rates. Hopefully you all can see this. I've got really big monitors at home, so I'm hoping I zoom this up big enough that you all, if you have tiny monitors, that it's still legible. So the bands at the top you can really disregard. That's for boards, but really what applies to you is this bottom box here with state-funded community support. So this is where we bumped up the cap that I was mentioning earlier. But the next page is really where you guys come in. This is the initial funding in this first column that everybody is used to. And then we've got 3 different adjustments, which ICF, again, none of y'all operate ICFs. So that's blank, but I did want it in there for a trail. And then the day program pass-through, this rate increase is based on underlying day program utilization by the people in these slots. So that's how these bands have always been calculated. You don't pass through, you pass through the rate based on utilization. And so running reports, that's how we land on these numbers. So you can see you're getting anywhere from $3.72 to $4.50 extra per day. And again, this applies to all those leaves as well. And of course, SOP1's a monthly rate, and that is going up. Enhanced CTH1 is a monthly rate, it's going up. Day supports pass-through rate, $31.29. You can see IDRD and Haskell had a slight haircut on the rates because we're passing it through. Now, of course, like I said before, Haskell, we could have easily dropped that $17.90 to $5.11, but we chose not to do that to you all and state fund that difference. And then CS is going up $4. So, that I'm hoping that'll balance out pretty well for everybody. It might be a small drop for some folks. It might be a big increase for others. And then Respite is going up 34 cents per 15-minute unit, and Adult Companion's going up 47 cents per 15-minute unit. This does not in any way affect what you have to pay your caregivers. All that stays the same. So we are not anticipating that you take any of this. You can feel free to do so. I mean, if you feel like that's something you want to do and need to do, by all means, you can pay your caregivers more, but that is not an expectation tied to this increase. These rates should be on our website soon. We are trying to get there's a page dedicated to rates, and IT was been working really hard on some of this fee-for-service stuff and really couldn't stop what they were doing to take care of that rates thing, but we will have that updated soon, and these will be on our website under the training materials, and I think they're already out there actually from our DSM board training we did. All right, so back to this, the billing and payment process. So effective January 1, if you're providing day program services to at-home consumers, period, whether it be a board, a prior board person, or someone you've always been serving in yourself, we're going to pay you based on actual units at $31.29 per unit off of your desal. So you will no longer have to bill us, and you will no longer have to bill the provider for day services or employment services if they're not residential people. So if they're your residential people, you already have the money, so we're not going to pay you anymore. It's already in your rate. If you're a day program or an employment person, employment company, and you're working with the provider, one of our DSM boards, and they live in one of their homes, you're going to continue to bill them. But if they're not in one of their homes, we'll just pay you. And again, we're just going to run reports on our side. There's nothing you need to do magical to get paid. The only magic is you need to do this by the 5th. You need to submit your documentation by the 5th working day of the month, which is tomorrow for February. Again, nothing's changed, so there was no urgency in my mind to get this out. We didn't accelerate your due date. We didn't add any extra work on you. You already had to have it done by the 5th working day, so just do what you've always done, except you can stop doing some things you were doing, and you'll just get paid. All state-funded consumers, even though they're state-funded, we've made a decision to fund them at the full IDRD waiver rates. So whatever, if it's employment or day services, we will pass through the Medicaid rate, even though that's not a Medicaid service. We could have left that rate suppressed because it's fully state funded, but again, we were trying to be fair and consistent, and as a result, we're going to pass through those full rates. You'll get an increase for those people as well. So the day program and employment services will be paid off desal reports. We're going to go over some of those reports here in a little bit so you can see what they're going to look like, and you'll be able to run them on your side as well so that you can see what you should be expecting to get paid and audit us, if you will. For state-funded community supports and state-funded follow-along, again, you won't have to bill us for those units anymore. Our reporting is going to pick those up, and we will pay you, and you'll be able to see that in the invoices here in a minute, where you can see that we're compensating you for those units. You've just got to make sure you complete your reports properly. As long as you put them on the report and you properly report it, and by the time the due date, you're going to get paid timely and in full. The service provider, not the financial manager. So in the past, the financial manager had the money, and service providers had to run through these hoops to get paid. Like they had to bill Babcock, they had to bill York, Max Abilities, they had to bill Anderson. If they're at home people, you guys should go ahead and end your contracts with these boards, and we will actually enter into a contract with you if we don't already have one, and we'll begin paying you. So you don't have to deal with the boards anymore in getting this done, and then we're going to pay you actually on the unit served. There will be no tracking of vacancies or absences because, again, in the rate is an absence assumption. So just want to clarify that. Now, again, to reiterate, and I know I've said it like 5 times already, if it's a residential consumer, though, you're going to still have to maintain those contracts. The difference is, and I've got a section down here under third-party arrangements. I'll just talk about it then, so give me a few minutes, but you will have to have that arrangement still. LaKenya, I want to give her credit. She's online. If anybody wants to clap for her, she has taken upon herself to go back and figure out how to get you guys paid back to July 1st. So she's been very busy. She's got spreadsheets and so forth that you'll be getting when you get your funds paid back retroactively. So you won't have to submit anything to us to get those funds paid. LaKenya, if you want to comment here, if there's anything you want to say at all, please do so.
Hey, Chris, can you hear me?
Yeah, barely.
Okay. No.
Speak up.
Okay, so we're working currently
There you
still
go.
on those.
That's better.
Okay, good. So we're working currently on those retro payments. A lot of the smaller QPLs, those have already been turned into Debbie. She's going to do a quick review over them just to make sure that everything looks good, that my thinking and my calculations are correct, and then we're going to start getting those sent to AP so that they can get their retro payments. So hopefully by next week, I should be finished with everybody, so they should be getting those payments, I would say, the week of the 15th.
Excellent. All right, and why don't you go ahead and speak about the 5th working day as well and how that works, since you're online already talking.
Okay. Yeah, so I just sent out emails to all of the boards and QPLs who still have outstanding res log and DSAL logs for January 2021. Those logs need to be submitted and approved by tomorrow at 6 p.m. This way, you can make sure that all of your activity that you're recording for January is going to populate into your invoice, which is going to be generated on Monday morning. If your logs are late, your invoice will not show that data on those invoices, and you will have to wait until March to receive payment for that, for those services that you are trying to bill us for. So it's very important just to get those in by tomorrow by 6.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, third-party arrangements, that's what I'm calling this, where you're billing the boards. I've already said ad nauseum about us paying you direct for the at-home folks. So with the residential people, there will be a difference in that you won't bill them $27.50 anymore. You'll bill them $31.29, but you won't add your 20% absences to it. So you guys will need to do a contract revision, and this will not be retroactive with them. I'm trying to remember the logic there. I'm drawing a blank right now, but I've thought this through. This will be a January 1. Oh, because I know why. Because you've already done the absences, and we would have to unravel. We'd have to go back and unravel all the 20%, and it'd be a complete mess. So just a clean break, January 1. You guys all need to revise your contracts with them if you have residential folks you're serving, and it's $31.29 with no billing for any absences. When you bill the providers, it's very important that you give them a copy of the DSAL or the log that supports that you've properly submitted that documentation to us. We're asking them to do that as part of their payment process. Kevin, who's online from internal audit, he's done some reviews and found that we had providers getting billed for units of service, and they were paying them, but there was no billing in our system. So, we were totally missing. Either there was a suspicion about what was being billed, like did it really happen, or we were missing out on the opportunity to recoup those dollars through our billing. So when you send them the invoice, you need to send them that documentation. Deborah, I am going to let you go over this section if you don't mind. The contract changes.
Okay. Yeah, I've had a couple people ask me about contract changes. It's going to be just like I've always done. It's going to be you will get an amendment. Some of you it's your second amendment of the year. Some of you it's your third, and it will show all of your new rate changes. As I mentioned before, if you have any enhanced rates, those will go up by the same amount as the high needs rate. Or a couple of you have SOP 1s that have an enhanced rate, those will go up by the SOP 1 rate. And it will go all the way back on the amendment, it'll go all the way back to July 1st. So you'll get that, and through DocuSign, just sign those. I'll also be issuing some new contracts, as Chris has mentioned before, to a few providers that haven't had contracts before that were third party. Now they're going to be directly paid by DDSN, so those will be coming out in the next week or so. Got a lot of stuff going on, but I'm getting them out as fast as I can. And we're going to modify the state-funded community support contract just to add a column so that we can break out the difference between the day add-on and the behavior supports. Those will also come out maybe in the next week.
Specialized family homes.
Yes, specialized. It still want to call it TFH and SFH.
Yeah.
So
You said state-funded community supports.
I'm sorry. I'm
Sorry,
I'm
too many acronyms.
Too many acronyms. You're right.
All right, is that it?
I think that's it. I mean, the contract adjustments are pretty simple, and they're not going to look any different than any of the other ones you've gotten. So.
Okay. As I stated, the rates, number one, I just dropped them in the meeting, so you might have gotten an alert that somebody added an attachment, so there's the rates. I think I already mentioned there should be on our website under Finance and Audit Resources page, and I mentioned that we were going to upload and update the rates on our page. There's actually a whole page on rates, and I mentioned that we were going to add these attachments sometime before tomorrow where you can go reference and get all these materials on our Finance and Audit page. What's the rate for SFF for state-funded follow-along? Well, the rates for state-funded follow-along and state-funded community supports are the same as all the other rates. The issue is the cap for state-funded community supports went up because otherwise when you started billing the higher rate, you'd go over the cap, and it was caused by a rate increase, so we couldn't have that happen. And then state-funded follow-along, that cap wasn't adjusted because when we looked at it, it's job coach, and so or support employment individual. Sorry, gosh, Ben gets on me for using the wrong terms. You know, it's kind of a wash. So we didn't anticipate if we see that that's going to be a problem related to state-funded follow-along, we'll have to revise or look at that cap that's in there. But really, with rates going down and rates going up, and really kind of how CS balances out with IDRD, we felt that it would be adequate to leave the cap where it's at. Again, it's all state-funded, so there's no obligation there for us to do anything at all, but we wanted to. So to be clear, you're saying no longer bill the boards, and DSN will pay us directly for those who attend our day program based on reports we submit to DDSN. Is that accurate? Yes, as long as they're not residential people. If you have somebody in your day program and they're attending your day program, but they live in one of the provider's houses, you still need to continue to bill that residential provider because they have the full funding band. If they're at home, living at their own home in the community, yes, we will just automatically pay you. So nothing you need to do to get paid. Do we still need to bill employment individual to finance? Yes. For financial managers that are have residential consumers that you're serving, you still have to bill day service and employment individual to them at the higher rates without absences, which employment doesn't have absences, but just to hit them both. How do QPLs know who is in a residential program and in a residential band? Are we expected to manually no, you're not expected to manually scrub files. Hopefully you already know where these people live. Since you're serving them, you're either picking them up at the house or you're picking them up at one of the provider's homes. I'm assuming that the case manager would know where they live, and hopefully the service provider would know where they live. So I don't anticipate any manual scrubbing of files to get that data. Ben, do you have any comment on that? Again, that's not my strong point. I mean, in their app, it should tell where they live. I mean, There's
I mean,
gotta
it won't,
be.
not necessarily. CDSS will, if you have access to that, but I don't think most providers do. I think it just comes down to more of knowing the individual, and I mean, you'll get the hang of it. It's not like it's changing often where they live, if they live in residential or not. So just create one master list. You can contact case managers. They'll let you know.
I mean, how many
But
people are you billing to a financial manager? This doesn't apply to people that are living at home, so, or that you've ever billed. I mean,
And they need to know if it's job coach we're talking about, they're going to be filling out job applications for them and things like that. So they should know where they live from that as well.
Chris, if they're talking about the services that's coming through DSAL, we have that separated funding for them.
she's trying to figure out how does she know whether she needs to bill a financial manager still.
So on the DSAL for the day support services and employment services, we are either flagging it as a waiver, IDRD, or waiver residential. So that waiver residential funding would be those individuals that the service provider would need to bill the financial manager.
Yeah, so I think what she's saying there, let me pull up this real quick. And I'm going way out of order, but I'll give this a second to refresh on your end. Hopefully I can see this chart. Ben, can you see this chart?
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
So we've added some new funding codes, and right here, WR
It's
is a
for
waiver.
residents.
We're set residential, and I'm
Right.
assuming, Carol, what you're saying is somewhere they can find this WR on
This
the
is going-
DSAL, it'll flag it.
That's how it's going to print on the DSAL logs. So we're going to create an invoice for all other fundings except for that one.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, I knew manually
So that-
scrubbing
that
files
tells the-
was
that
not going
tells
to be
the-
the only option.
That tells the service provider that for that individual that they would need to bill the financial manager to get paid.
Yeah, we can probably help a provider too. If they've got a lot of volume and they're like, we've looked at this and we still can't figure it out, just let us know. We'll help you out. I mean, we don't expect you to go through files manually.
True.
Too much documentation that's on the computer to go through files manually. Let's see. Let's see. All right. Craig says he believes once the DSAL is approved, it specifies who the financial manager is.
That was at that time. We are changing it now to show you the DSAL is now going to be provider driven. You're providing the service, you're reporting the service.
Yeah.
So therefore, where we used to tell you who the financial manager was, it's going to go away.
So, Linda, I know you need to know these things. That's why we're doing the training. And I've also got information right here that we're getting ready to go over because I haven't finished my training yet that will help segregate these folks for us. Technical assistance, open mic calls are also available. We have one tomorrow at 1, Monday at 3, and the 12th at 1. These are just hour-long sessions. We have folks from finance that sign in, and we just sit there, and you guys join in and ask any questions that you might have so that we can make sure you have what you need to do your job, and then secondarily figure out what we might have overlooked and update our processes. Out of these calls will become a frequently asked questions document, and we will outline the questions that were asked at the sessions and publish those. We've already had 2. I just haven't had time to publish any of those at this point. I've been too busy, but I'll try and get that probably this weekend. I'll end up working on that. And then in this agenda, you've got the Skype meetings links. So there is an email I sent out on the 26th that had all this in it. Now, there were no invites, so it's not like you could accept the meeting and add it to your calendar. You had to do it manually. The main reason I do that is because I don't want all your email addresses floating around the state where everybody can just bombard you with, I don't know. I just don't think it's appropriate to share your email with everybody in the entire state with our stuff. So I try to be cognizant of that, which is why I send blind copies all the time. And then on appointments, there's really no blind copy. On an appointment, you have to add up. Basically, you treat them like a resource, like a room or equipment to be checked out, which is really weird. And that's the only way that it's blind copied. But I just get nervous with that because you're blind copying 200 people. Surely that's not going to work at some point. So let's talk about the new reports. Everybody should be familiar with our portal, I hope. Basically, go to our portal at app.ddsn.sc.gov, and then you can log in. If you don't have access to this, contact our help desk. Or Deborah, do you want them contacting you for this as well, like we have the boards?
If they don't have access to the portal,
yeah,
I would say do the help desk for that.
Okay. But hopefully you all do. And then when you get in there, you'll have the application listing, and you want to select R2D2 right here, the actuate reporting. And then once you're in there, you'll have all these reports that we're about to go over. So after you click on R2D2, you'll have a little button with a welcome screen and some wording in there, but you can read all that if you want. But click here to view reports. Then you'll navigate. So you'll go DSN reports, logs, DSAL and ResLog, and then DSAL. Let me drop this in the meeting real quick also for you all. So just a minute and you'll have it on your end. All right. So I just added it if you guys want to check it out. Anyway, so once you get in that folder, that's where all these reports are going to end up showing up. So let's see, what does it say? From this folder, you'll be able to, with the correct access. Okay, yeah, you just need to, if you can't see this stuff, you'll need to, again, check with the help desk. We might have to get into your user and say, hey, they need to be able to see this stuff. All right, so when you get in there, you'll have it's called Invoice for DSAL. This is a fee-for-service invoice, and it's only effective for January and afterwards. If you try and run it for any dates prior to that, it's not going to pull any data. IT has had to run some really magical stuff so I want to give thanks to our IT department, specifically Maxine Bradley, for all her work on this and her team. They've had to basically do a daily snapshot of people's residential status, if you will, so that when we run these reports, it's not looking at their current status. As you can imagine, that would be a mess. So, if somebody was residential in January and then they weren't, say February 3rd, and you did this all on the 4th, they would potentially be missed, and vice versa. So they've got it set up where every single day they know the person's status. The report generates a different variety of versions on the same data, and so we have screenshots we'll show you of each of these. When a provider requests these invoices, the provider parameter is automatically pre-populated, so you won't see like where we have provider here. This is with a state user level. We have to put in the provider's number, whereas for you, it knows your provider number based on your user access. So again, if the user tries to run this invoice before January, no data will display. The user selects the type of invoice and also where to print the details or totals only. So the parameters for this invoice are the log month, so that would be 01 for January. In log year, you always use not your fiscal year, but the actual calendar year that the month relates to. So it'd be 2021. That would not be, let's say it was December, you would not want to do December 2021 for fiscal year 2021. You would do 12/2020. There's not going to be anything in it if you run it for that. I'm just saying, as an example, that log year is the actual calendar year you're in for that log. And then the details are totals, and we'll show you what those look like. And then the type of invoice you want. If you want it for CS waiver, HASCI, IDRD with no residential services, state-funded community support, state-funded follow-along, state-funded. Now, this is something you guys really, I don't think, would have. The DSN boards have people that aren't funded at all, and they're not state-funded, they're not Medicaid funded, they're basically serving them for free, if you will, with no additional compensation. I don't think any of y'all have that status. If you do, please let me know. But I don't think you do. So that's what that one is, the state-funded, excluding community supports and follow-along, and then all waiver. And the all waiver only runs for the totals report. So here's what the stuff's going to look like. I'll give it a minute to screen refresh on your end. So you'll run a desal. This is the desal detail invoice for CS waiver, and you can see it in this particular instance, we had somebody go back, and we're running it for February, and it's for February 5th close date. This thing knows that somehow this unit got entered after you submitted your bill last time. Even though you did your bill on time, apparently you entered the unit late or after the date, and it knows to go back and grab that. It also knows all the different rates based on the type of waiver you're in. So this employment service individual will fluctuate based on that. So this will give you your total, all your consumer names or socials, all that kind of stuff. And then the IDRD for consumers not receiving residential invoice, you can see this is 1648, reflecting the IDRD pass-through rate. Same thing. We've got kind of the same data, just with different titles, and it's pulling the correct rate, of course, but you'll notice that the names and all aren't changing, but the rates are. HASCI, same thing. I don't think any of you guys have HASCI. You might, but anyways, if you do, here's the HASCI. And then state-funded follow-along, we'll run this on our side, so we'll automatically pay you for state-funded follow-along. State-funded community supports, same thing, auto-pay you. You don't have to turn anything into us. This one is the one I was telling you about with the free people that they're serving. Again, I don't really think any of y'all have this. If you do, the invoice is there. And then there's a summary remittance. And so this will accumulate all the different funding sources for waiver for each service. And then this is a summary day support remittance, which again, you don't have to do anything with this. This is on our side, but you should be able to run these reports on your end still. Summary for IDRD, not receiving residential. And then, you get the drift. HASCI, state-funded follow-along. State-funded community supports, and again, the freebies that they've been serving. And then here, the desal service totals invoice for, okay, so let me back up on this one. The document you guys have been running before for state-funded community supports, they appended to the end before January 2021 so that you could identify that report if you ran it. So if you need December and earlier, you'll run this one. But there's another one that you will run, the ones we showed you earlier, that will give you your January and after information. And so the reason we had to do that is because the ones December earlier, you guys are invoicing us for. We need to keep that separate, and then everything in January and later is going to just come out. And then we have the new funding types. I don't know how many of these actually changed, but we had to change some of these abbreviations. Don't get caught up with these units. They're just garbage example units. But you can see the funding category that we have here. So to the point earlier, you should be able to, when you run your DSAL, the old DSAL that you've always been able to run, we'll have this little table. You're familiar with the table printing at the bottom. So that'll have it, and then by each consumer's name, it tells you their funding source. So that DSAL will show you that. Okay. I think that's it. So I'm going to see what questions we have here. Okay, so Laura asks, when you say that they live in another provider residential home, does that also mean SLP individuals as well as only CTH2 homes? Yes, good point. So that would be a residential person, like, I'm assuming you're working with a board that serves them for SLP, but yet you might provide support employment or something to them, employment individual. Yeah, you would continue billing them. They'd be considered a residential person. Same with SLP1 at this point. Oh, Deborah answered it. All right, well, that looks like that's all the questions. We'll hang out. If anybody wants to unmute themselves to ask questions or type them in, we'll hang out here for a few minutes. I do invite you to join our technical assistance open mic calls. We have gotten some questions that have really brought up a few things that we didn't think of. As much as we've met on this and tried to think of everything, I'm sure there's stuff we forgot. So please do join that. And it's more of a user forum too, where we have a lot of people joining in and just listening, just to see if they pick up anything. So hopefully you'll join us if you do have questions. And if not, check our finance and audit resources page probably by the end of the day tomorrow. We'll have this up on there, I'm sure, before we leave for the weekend. If you look at that now, there's a training resources section, and there's a fee-for-service implementation materials section. We'll put it in there, and we'll clearly identify that it's private provider materials, because we really need to delineate those. They're not the same. So you'll be able to look at that. This is a change in day program billing only, correct? Laura, can you unmute yourself? Oh, Carol answered you, but I still would like to hear the actual question. Laura, are you able to talk so I can understand what you're asking?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, our day program's closed, obviously, because we're in a pandemic. So
right.
It seems like all of this, our folks that live with us were obviously, we were billing absent days, but all of that has run out now anyway, and now you're saying we don't get absent days, which is fine, and I totally understand that. So right now, we're not really doing any of this stuff because the day program's not open, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you providing day services in your residential program, though? Like the day activity and day services that can be done from residential programs? Are you doing that?
Yeah, yes, but I'm just saying if they live with us, I'm already getting that rate because
right.
It's mixed in with the residential rate, so I don't need to bill anybody separately for that because I'm already getting it.
Correct.
So, and we're not taking other people into our day program at this current time. We're not serving them in the day center because it's closed.
Right.
So this is just something for the future when we open the day program again, right?
You should still be putting the DSAL information for the people that you're doing day programs for in your residential facilities. You still need to be doing that so that we can turn around and bill and recapture some of that funding as well.
Right, but if you're, hopefully you are doing that.
I mean, I think
Yeah,
they are. I just wanted to know what we were doing for these reports.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, you keep doing everything you've always done. Our systems are smart enough now with how we got them programmed to split out, okay, this is in their residential rate already. These we need to pay them extra for. These they need to be getting the money from the financial manager. And so to Melinda's point, you really need to know if you're serving somebody that's not in your residential program, are they in a financial manager's residential program? If the answer is yes, you have to continue billing them.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm not to be
All right,
dumb,
so
but
let's use.
if they don't live with me, I'm not providing day services right now, and I can't bill absent days for day services. That's what you said earlier. So
Right,
I'm
right.
not providing services, and I'm not doing absent days, so I'm not billing unless they live with me.
I'm talking pre-COVID.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm trying to get to where people know what they need to know, and we're not like, okay, well, this is how it works now. I mean, I'm trying to talk about normalcy. And so back before March hit us, you basically are doing the exact same thing you've always done with the desal. The difference is going to be, is the money for the people in desal already in your rate? So that'd be your residential people. Are they people from the community that don't have a financial manager any longer? We will pay you for those, and the system knows how to pick those up. Or it's someone not from the community, not from your residential program, but Babcock's. You need to still bill Babcock because they have the money for day program. So you basically got three different subsets of the people you're serving. But the only ones you need to know are the ones that are financial you want to get paid, right? You're like, okay, I got these three different populations. I want to make sure I get paid. Well, the ones that are in your residential program, you are getting paid for. The ones that live at home or SLP2, at home, we're going to start paying you for straight instead of you billing the financial manager. And then this other group, you'll still bill a financial manager like you always have, but you need to make sure you know which ones those are so you can continue that process so you don't lose out on your revenue. Does that make sense?
Yep, I got it.
Okay, good. It's clear as mud, ain't it? All right, anybody else? All right, we'll drop down about 39 participants at this point. If no one has any questions, I'll give you a couple more seconds to speak up. Otherwise, we'll call it quits.